Look, I think we all will admit, as humans, we are emotional creatures. Now, we rationalize our emotions with logic. We do a very good job of that most of the time. And so, we act impulsively when it comes to money. We make decisions every day of are we going to delay gratification by not spending in the hopes of a better future. And the willingness to delay gratification is a sign of maturity. But the system we have incentivizes us to be financially immature, unfortunately. And so it causes people not to form capital, not to save, because that's the incentive. That's what the system wants us to do. It's a debt-based system.
You're punished if you save.
Absolutely.
If you start to accumulate and save, you're actually punished for it. And unfortunately, when we look at the circumstances of today, which we'll get maybe into in more detail in a moment, what we see is that the people who have the toughest time trying to save, who do, are the ones who kind of are punished the most. Is that the scenario that you see right now?
Essentially, yes. The people are being punished to save because their savings is being debased through inflation, and it just won't buy as much in the future. So people spend today, they forego their future, and it's just a very unfortunate system and set of circumstances. But you can benefit from this if you know the game, right? You can actually game the system. And that's what I teach my real estate investors to do, is to game the system through a strategy I developed called inflation-induced debt destruction. I know it's a mouthful.
We'll go through that for sure. So, but if I were to summarize kind of your trajectory, got the bug when you were younger, started investing in real estate, then decided you need to study economics, and at that point, I guess you realized, wow, this is a rigged game.
It is rigged.
The way that this all works, the Fed, these central banks, the monetary policies, that they put into place, and that were kind of pawns in that game. And as I like to explain to my kids, I said, it's like somebody gave me a credit card to live my whole life on today, and then after I die, you got to pay it, and your kids got to pay it, and your kids got to pay it. It's kind of. I wanted them to understand how egregious and irresponsible our government is behaving, and they get it through that example. But this is the interesting and curious thing is they said, okay, so I've now. My eyes are open. I see what's going on, and what's the solution? Can I turn this to my advantage? And you said that there are ways to do this.
There are definitely ways to do it. What I always say to our investors is, we help people buy real estate nationwide. We help people invest in real estate and build portfolios. And I think it's such a good asset class because it's multidimensional, right? And there are many ways you can earn your return. Most people love real estate, and they get that intuitively nowadays. But we've got to align our interest with the two most powerful forces the human race has ever known: governments and central banks. Those are the most powerful forces in the world, and we need to play their game. We need to do what they do. And their business plan is to inflate away the debt. And what I mean by that is, think of this example. For example, when it comes to foreign trade, if the United States owes $1 trillion, if the United States has $1 trillion in debt to, say, China, right, which is somewhere around the number, I don't know the exact number lately, but that's called a current account deficit, right? And if it has that debt, and its currency is inflated by 10%, whether that be in 1 year or 2 years, $100 million of debt just vanish. Poof. It's a beautiful thing. So the business plan of governments and central banks is to inflate away the debt.
Now, so to stay on that for a second, because it's 100% accurate, why the Chinese know this?
Yeah.
Why would they accept the debt?
It's a great question, and it's a multifaceted answer. Because number one, they pretty much have to. We are their biggest customer. And I know there's a lot of hostility going on with China nowadays, but we're still China's biggest customer, which, I believe that the good side of all of this worldwide trade and globalization is that we're less likely to destroy our own customers, right? So hopefully that will keep the peace to some extent.
You're
okay?
relying on some level of rationality,
Right.
but yes.
Well, look, when it comes to money, people usually
they
do
something
the thing
sober
that
up, don't they?
yeah, they do sober up. So the anger might subside to just get the next batch of money. So they know we're inflating away the debt. And pretty much every country on earth is doing the same game. But there's one huge difference, is that the United States has the reserve currency of the world and the biggest military the human race has ever known to maintain the reserve currency status.
Right.
And there are all kinds of chicken little doom and gloomers talking about how, the sky is falling, and it kind of is, but very, very slowly. It's not going to happen anytime soon.
Right.
They can probably kick this can down the road for decades, if not entire lifetimes. So
You're talking about the economic can or the reserve currency can, or both?
all of the above.
Okay.
And so that China sort of has to accept that situation. They know it's happening, of course. And they still even buy our debt to some extent. They don't necessarily want to, but there's all of this stuff going on behind the scenes. There are all of these different pressures that countries can bring to bear on each other. And I think a lot of this, now the world understands it much better with the sanctions on Russia. And, the world really gets that by and large, because we've seen the kind of pressure you can put on a country when you have the reserve currency. You are in the bully pulpit, and the United States is in an extremely enviable position. Now, other countries don't like it. They'd rather have the reserve currency, of course, but the U.S. has it now, and it's using its advantage.
Yeah, and some people are worried that we're going to lose that. The Saudis are now accepting the yuan directly from China without having to transfer to dollars. But I spoke to an economist friend of mine who was an economist for two presidents, and basically he said there could be one or two reserve currencies. It's us or China. And people aren't going to trust putting their money in China into a communist government, so it's secure as far as he was concerned.
I would agree wholeheartedly. The U.S. reserve currency status is going to be maintained for quite a while.
Even though we're what we're doing to the currency, et cetera. But I guess
everybody else is doing it too.
I guess we're still the tallest pygmy is what it amounts to.
Exactly. Right? It's the prettiest girl at the ugly dance kind of metaphor, right? It's compared to what is the question,
right?
Right. Of course, the U.S. is doing all these bad things, but so is everybody else.
Yeah, and to your point earlier, it's not like tomorrow it all comes apart. They can keep this game going. It's kind of this Ponzi scheme, if you will. They can keep it going for a while. It's not going to be tomorrow or next month, but at some point it's going to collapse. We just don't know what that point is.
The chickens always have to come home to roost,
Yeah.
but it can take a very, very long time.
Still.
If you read George Friedman's books, he was the founder of Stratfor, and they're the company or agency that the U.S. government goes to for intelligence information, right? They have a lot of information, and he wrote a book called The Next 100 Years, and it talks about how over the next 100 years, America will still dominate the world. And, it controls every ocean on Earth, 12 aircraft carriers, the ability to project power anywhere on planet Earth at short notice. This is not going to change anytime soon. I admit that there is a lot of nibbling around the margins, no question about it. There are countries and governments and other central bankers who don't like the situation, but it's going to remain for a while, in my opinion.